Good evening. Notice is hereby given of the meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 1st, 2011, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to immediately... I apologize. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Friday, October the 28th, 2011, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, the editor at thealternativepress.com, and patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, location of this meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Matesic? Ms. Carey? Mrs. Clancy?
Here.
Mr. Finn?
Here.
Mr. Friedman?
Here.
Ms. Kirstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Yes. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have announcements this evening. Mr. Slater, you want to start us off?
Yes, I am very excited to read this one. Videotaped Board of Education meetings are now available online at two different places. www.westfieldnewjerseyk12.org/meeting video, or what will probably be easier for most of you is just to go to our district's homepage, where there will be two links with access to the streamed videos. On the video's quick link and also via the board tab, you'll be able to watch this board meeting. Thank you.
Tomorrow Mitch will be there.
By the end of this week, Westfield High School will have participated in every Union County tournament final, either at the varsity or JV level, with the exception of boys soccer. Sandy Mamery, athletic supervisor, says this may very well be a first for Westfield. With many of the county meets finalized, we congratulate these champions: girls tennis, gymnastics, boys cross-country varsity JV and 9th grade, JV field hockey, and girls cross-country 9th grade varsity and JV placed second. And the best of luck as girls varsity soccer head for the county finals this Saturday night, 7:30 p.m., November 5th at Kane University, where they will compete against Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. Go Blue Devils. And just an update that I know as of today, Tuesday, the boys soccer did participate in the first round of the state tournament, and they won, I believe it was 4-0 against Dickinson. So congratulations to boys soccer on their first round of the state tournament.
Here, here. Such great news.
Yes.
I have two announcements. The first is the Westfield High School Community Service Club is helping to promote the Blood Drive of New Jersey's Blood Drive, a Blood Center of New Jersey Blood Drive. This will be held tomorrow, Wednesday, November 2nd, from 8 p.m. to 2 p.m. in the Student Center at the high school. Members of the public who wish to donate should sign in at the main office first. Unfortunately, unless you're viewing this today or tomorrow, you may miss this opportunity. But look around town for other blood drive centers. A volunteer fair is being held in the Westfield High School Student Center during all lunch periods on Thursday, November 3rd. Representatives from local voluntary organizations, including the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the Westfield Historical Society, and St. Hubert's Animal Shelter, will be on hand to provide information to any student interested in finding out about available opportunities to help.
Mr. Friedman?
Two Westfield High School students, Robert Romano and Nicholas Zaharodny, were named winners of $250 savings bonds each in the Westfield Unico Essay Contest. Congratulations to these students, and thank you to Unico for sponsoring the contest, which is in its 12th consecutive year.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Anti-bullying coordinator for the Westfield Public Schools, Audrey Zavitz, addressed an audience of parents, residents, and school personnel on October 26th regarding the new legal requirements in New Jersey and Westfield's revised harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. Joining Mrs. Zavitz was Dr. Michael Weissman, the district's Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Personnel Services. Both administrators were invited to the meeting held at Edison Intermediate School by the Special Education Parent Committee in Westfield. Mrs. Zavitz and Dr. Weissman explained highlights of New Jersey's legislation and described the steps that Westfield has taken both before and since the new HIB policy came into effect. The presentation was taped and will be aired on Blue Devil Westfield High School TV 36 and posted on the district's website later this month.
And from the dramatics department, the Edison Intermediate School's fall drama Witches will be performed Thursday, November 3rd at 4 p.m. and Friday, November 4th and Saturday, November 5th at 7:30 p.m. The play is based on the popular tale by Roald Dahl and includes a huge cast and crew of students. From Roosevelt, RIS students have donated more than 300 school supplies, raised funds, and held a special performance of their fall play, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, for more than 100 Cranford Elementary School students and their families affected by Hurricane Irene. Also this fall, the Westfield High School's theater department will be producing Stage Door by George S. Kaufman and Edna Ferber. The production will be presented in the high school auditorium Thursday, November 17th at 4 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, the 18th and 19th at 7:30 p.m.
Excellent, thank you. Mrs. Clancy?
And then I just had one more added announcement this evening. We often get to share a lot of wonderful information from our current students in the district, and every once in a while we get some alumni news that comes back to us, and we just thought that tonight we would share one of those stories that we came across our desk. A 2002 Westfield High School graduate, Stephen Krakauer, we received information that last week became the senior digital producer for CNN News, and it's very impressive, and we're proud of him and congratulate him on that. I know he has had a journey of Syracuse University to interning as a page with NBC, to working with Piers Morgan, a group called Mediaite with Dan Abrams, and here he is. So congratulations, Stephen.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you. And last but not least, on November 7th, 8th, and 9th, there will be a 4-hour session for our kindergarten through 5th grade students for parent-teacher conferences and curriculum planning. Then the following week, or the end of that week, schools will be closed on November the 10th and the 11th for the NJEA convention, but the administrative offices will remain open. And our next Board of Ed meeting is on November the 22nd here at Elm Street. Okay, thank you. We can now recognize the public for agenda items. You'd state your name and address, please.
Julietta Albano, 6 Drummond Road. I basically prepared a statement that I'll go ahead and read, but I would like to ask that after the transportation update, that the public can be recognized for comments again without having to wait until the end of the meeting. Is that possible?
I think that can work.
Okay. I have a daughter that rides on the E7 bus. Again, I'm at 6 Drummond Road, and I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss some of the issues that we've been experiencing and my opinion about the situation. We've made a lot of progress with the E7 busing issues we've experienced since the start of the school year. The route was made more efficient for the most part by having less stops and shorter ride times. The delays have been minimized, and most days the drivers are making the appropriate stops. However, it's November, and these are all things that should have been worked out and executed before the start of the school year. In addition, these improvements were made because of the persistence of the E7 parents. Had we said nothing, nothing would have changed. Putting aside that the routes were not planned properly, I believe the bigger issue is that Vogel has demonstrated their incompetence over and over again. Vogel is the bus company that runs this route. I can recall at least 15 instances since September 7th where they have been getting late been late getting to school, have missed stops, have made wrong turns, or dropped kids off where they shouldn't have. Also, they made changes to the route without notifying the district. We've had 36 school days up through yesterday, or 72 bus trips, and 15 mishaps equate to a 21% error rate. This is an unacceptable margin of error from any vendor. Vogel is a vendor, and their business is busing. They don't seem to be very, very good at their business. I think most of you would agree that a vendor making 1 to 3 errors can be explained and accepted, but this is ridiculous. In the real world, none of us could ever tolerate this pathetic level of service from a vendor. This is all the more outrageous since we've entrusted Vogel with transporting our children to and from school on a daily basis, and quite frankly, they are not worthy of the task. I, along with other E7 parents, believe that Vogel is not the right company to be doing business with. I would hope that the Board of Ed members and school district officials would agree. To me, the only viable option is to replace Vogel. They've already been given too many chances to get to where they should have been 2 months ago. So I have 2 questions that can either be answered now or during the update. First, what needs to happen for the district to be able to replace Vogel with another company this school year? Second, what steps are being taken to ensure we have the right company and the correct routes for next year? This process should be starting sooner rather than later.
I would think it would make sense to make the presentation about it, and then as part of that, we can try to address that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry.
Okay. Seeing no one else at the podium.
And actually, before we get into that presentation, I just wanted to, in light of the storm and the aftermath of the storm, I just wanted to speak briefly to that. Westfield, most of New Jersey, and many areas of the Northeast were certainly hit with an unusual storm this past weekend. And we've been fortunate in the school district that we have been able to open all the schools both yesterday and today. This was only possible with the assistance of a great many people. Our Director of Maintenance, Mike Morris, toured the district during the storm on Saturday. And at that point, most of our schools, and certainly most of the town, had no power. After speaking with me and Mr. Yaniro, he called all maintenance workers in at 7:30 on Sunday. After they cleared major areas such as parking lots, building custodians then came in to check buildings to clear walkways and grounds. On Sunday, truckloads of limbs and debris were cleared by our workers. Mr. Morris provided updates throughout the day, and by the afternoon, only one school, Franklin, was still without power. After speaking with Dr. Cambria, the principal, we sent out an alert to parents and staff at Franklin that there was a possibility that school would have to be closed on Monday. And this way, parents could start to plan. As the day progressed, I provided updates to board members and received suggestions from board members as more information became possible. Throughout the day, I spoke with other principals, many of whom were also without power, and some of them stranded in their homes. I spoke with superintendents from other districts, some of whom were able to open and some who could not. I also spoke with Jim Gilday, Westfield's town administrator, and also representatives from PSE&G. Mr. Yaniro reached out to the bus company to make sure that we were ready to transport students on Monday. Mrs. Ball made sure that we had sufficient substitutes, knowing that some of our staff members still are without power and were not able to arrive on Monday. Certainly there are still homes without power in Westfield. Actually, some people at this table are still without power in their homes. And certainly there are still streets that are closed off waiting for utility authority to come. But still we were able to open. When crafting the message to the community, I stressed that safety was the utmost concern. No one wanted parents rushing through dangerous intersections, worried that students would be marked late on a school day. There are certainly families who could not send their children to school on Monday and Tuesday, and that is certainly understandable because they had very specific situations in their home. Parents were certainly very cooperative during all this, as were students and staff. And as I walked through the hallways yesterday, I saw students working under the guidance of teachers and paraprofessionals as they would be any other day of the school year. I saw secretaries and administrators greeting frantic or anxious parents with smiles and letting them know that school was a safe place, even if there was no power at home. And I saw the same maintenance workers and custodians who worked over the weekend, continuing to clear our grounds and make our buildings safe. I want to thank everyone for their cooperation, and I'm sure that everybody joins me in hoping that calmer weather is in all of our futures. With that, I actually had a prepared presentation on transportation. I'm coughing in all of your ears every other sentence. Mr. Neer is going to present it. I also have a copy, and both of us will be glad to answer questions about it in addition.
Thank you. This is an overview of our transportation system. Our school district does not own any buses. We contract with other entities for our bus routes. For each of the routes we run, we have to prepare a description of the run, go out to bid, or contract with the Union County Educational Services Commission. We have 21 in-district routes serving 492 students. 24 of those students are subscription busing students, meaning they don't qualify for mandated transportation, but they pay at a rate of $424 for the school year to ride one of the buses when there are seats available. We have 44 routes that transport 94 students to out-of-district special education programs. Additionally, as per state requirements, we have 3 routes that transport 93 Westfield students to private schools. A total of 679 students are being transported on 68 routes. All of the routes for students attending out-of-district special education programs are coordinated through the Union County Educational Services Commission. They coordinate the routes so that students who live in a variety of districts can be more efficiently transported to the same placements. Out of the 21 in-district routes, 20 of the bids were awarded to Vogel Bus Company. The other route was awarded to Amaker and Porterfield Bus Company through the Union County Educational Services Commission. The establishment of bus routes each year is the responsibility of the school district. However, they are prepared in conjunction with the bus company. The only students with door-to-door transportation are special education students with an individualized education plan that specifies that transportation is required. Responsibility for transportation falls under the business administrator. One secretary in the business office serves as the transportation secretary. She also has other duties, which include responsibility for the free and reduced lunch program. Parents receive information regarding the bus routes for their children in August, once the majority of students are registered for the school year. I would like to be able to tell you that all 68 routes run perfectly each day, but despite our ongoing efforts, parents do bring legitimate concerns that we investigate, address, or correct. If parents have questions or concerns regarding the pickup and drop-off of their children, they are asked to call the transportation office. Parents are also given the phone number of the bus company so that they can check on lost items or reach the bus company directly when the transportation office cannot be reached. The transportation office works cooperatively with the schools and parents to address issues. In the beginning of the school year, it often takes longer for buses to complete their routes. We work to make adjustments as needed. Safety is always our major concern, particularly when the weather is bad. The bus companies are able to communicate with the bus drivers who are en route. In the beginning of this school year, there were issues concerning 2 of our in-district routes, E7 and RE14. After the E7 route was observed for a few weeks, it was determined that this route should be divided into 2 more manageable routes, E7 and E20. The stops and schedules for RE14 were also adjusted in September. At this point, here are the average route times for our these 3 routes to Edison. E7, both the EM and PM route take about 35 minutes. E14, the AM route takes about 18 minutes. The PM route takes about 19 minutes. The E20 route, the AM route, is 30 minutes, as is the PM route. To address recent issues brought to the attention of the board, let me review some of our guidelines. In almost all instances, students are picked up at bus stops. Students are only picked up at their home if the child's individualized education plan specifies that this type of transportation is required. When complaints regarding bus drivers are brought to our attention, the Transportation Office investigates and works with the bus company, taking steps to ensure that the proper procedures are being followed. The bus companies and the Transportation Office have worked on routes in Westfield for many years and are aware of turns and stops that are not appropriate for large vehicles or are not appropriate at certain times of the day. A recent suggestion was made that the return route on one bus could be changed to save a few minutes. This suggestion was reviewed by the Transportation Office and the bus company, and it was found that the existing route is safe and provides for students to return home from school within 33 minutes. Whether establishing routes or bus stops, addressing issues regarding pickup times or adherence to schedules, the Transportation Office works to ensure that all 679 students on all 68 routes are safely and promptly transported to their schools. That job is an ongoing one that requires continuing attention. We are committed to providing that attention to all of the students.
Mr. Yanero, since the questions were just raised about the E7 and some of the complaints and the fact that there were more than one complaint about that route, I guess one of the questions was what would have to be done if we were to consider changing the bus company that has that route?
Okay. Well, what we would have to do is to either go out to bid ourselves for those two routes, or talk to the Educational Services Commission, just like we did when we established the additional route, the E20, and talk to them about changing Vogel and securing a different bus company. That would be the process.
And is there any more recent updates on E7 at this point? Or any?
Well, we've been monitoring it. We did have a problem with a particular driver who did miss a couple turns, and that driver has been replaced. And we now have a different driver on the bus, on the vehicle, and apparently that is moving pretty well at this time. We have monitored a few complaints regarding the times the buses are arriving in the afternoon at Edison, and we've monitored that very carefully in terms of when they arrive and when they depart. Yes, there have been some dates when the bus does arrive later than normal. We prefer the bus to arrive around 2:50, 2:55. The buses have been arriving closer to 3 and sometimes a minute or two after 3. However, they still have been departing Edison just a few minutes after 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is our goal for departure of the buses. Those are the issues.
Any questions from the table?
But just a clarification, so we don't need to wait for the end of the school year to change one of the Vogel routes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And is there any financial liability for the district if we end a contract in the middle of the year?
Well, I'd have to look at the contract. I don't believe so. I think the only financial issue is that, if you go out to bid now, you get the new price, which certainly could be higher than the price we have right now.
How many other players are there in this marketplace? Other bus companies that you feel could potentially handle this route?
Well, there are quite a few bus companies in the area.
I think, sorry to interrupt, I think generally we submit bids to 12 companies when we go out to bid. That's my recollection.
Right. So there are quite a few. It all depends on which companies would have available drivers and vehicles at that time.
And even though we submit the bids to 12 companies, we receive many fewer than that.
Right.
They choose not to submit.
And we're statutorily obligated to take the lowest bid. We don't have discretion because we're a public school system, right?
Correct. When we go to the Educational Services Commission on an emergency basis, like we did with the E20, they can just select a company and put it in force right away. However, after 60 days, then that route has to go out to bid again. So the E20 has to go out to bid again. So it's possible we might not get the same bus company, or the price may change. That's the process.
It sounds like there might be some interest in having a bid evaluation for the E7 route that's giving us a problem. If we go to bid and ask for pricing, are we under obligation to accept
No.
any bid?
No.
So we can
Well,
take a look at it?
right. I think probably the more logical approach would be to go to the Educational Services Commission, because what they do, they have, relationships
Right.
with many bus companies in the area, and, they know who provides good service, who doesn't, and so on.
But that would obligate us to go to bid within a 60-day
No,
window again?
we could, right, if we were to
Yeah.
change, right, if we were to change bus companies, right, then we would have to eventually go out to bid, or they would, if it were the Ed Services Commission.
Okay.
Can we keep a bus company off the list?
Yeah. Sure.
Are there, is Union County Services going to send it to Vogel after we've tried?
Well, they can select who they want to select if it's considered on an emergency basis. But then, when they go out to bid, whoever submits the low bid, you're obligated to receive. You're obligated to award.
I know we're on the topic of bidding and whatnot, but since, to my knowledge, this might be the first time we've ever had a transportation presentation by the administration, one thing that I didn't hear said that I think is part of how we do it is the Lincoln School runs a school-to-school route, and those are the only kids in the school district who run from a school building to another school building, because it was all part of the timing and trying to figure out how to get the early education center started with parents putting children in elementary schools, and so it's all part of the timing. But that is our one group of kids who go school to school. All right, anyone else? And then we'll open it back to the public, and we may come back to the table. Okay, did you want to come back up?
Juliet Albano, 6 Drummond Road. I guess a couple questions after that. We have, what I heard you say was that we have 21 in-district routes, and 20 of them are with Vogel.
Right.
I guess I'm trying to understand why we have issues only with 2 or 3 of the 20 routes. And do we know of other issues, or they're just, people aren't speaking up, or we just don't have any problems because they're established? I don't, I'm a little confused as to why that's, it's just these 1 or 2 routes out of 20. And the second thing is, have we always used Vogel? I know last year my daughter was on a route that was Dapper. But have we always used Vogel for the other routes? And I guess the problem, what I'm hearing, is that if we go out to bid, we have to take the lowest bid. I mean, you get what you pay for. So that sounds like a real problem. We're firing somebody because their service isn't good, but yet we're going to have to go with someone who provides the lowest cost. There's a reason why they provide the lowest cost. And then the last thing is, I don't know, I think they told you the bus driver was replaced, but as far as I'm aware, she was just driving the bus yesterday or Friday or today. So I don't know that bus driver was actually replaced. The one that was,
Delia?
I don't the E7 afternoon woman.
Okay, 'cause that was
So-
not what I was told.
So
I'll-
we're just letting you know.
Okay, I'll check on that, because I was told definitely we have a new driver on that route. Now, I don't know, maybe it just happened today that she substituted, or... She was there yesterday, too. Okay, I will, that's news to me, I will check. Okay.
So I guess just those couple questions about how long have we used Vogel, and I guess, have we not had issues with the other routes, or they've just not been as big of an issue?
Right, I mean, we've had issues here and there. I mean, nothing has ever run, occasionally the bus is late, or maybe a stop is missed or so on, but, nothing to the extent of, the routes that we're talking about. And I think, one of the big issues is the way the school year started. I mean, it just put everything under a microscope naturally, with the wrong bus coming and so on. And we all know the issues we encountered those first couple of days. And we've worked hard to do what we can, regarding those. But I would say the rest of the district is running pretty normally.
Okay,
But I will check on the return driver.
okay. Thank you.
Barbara Scrow, 7 Sandra Circle. I've been at the microphone on 2 other prior occasions, and before I address the transportation concerns, I'd like to say that I'm very happy with Mr. Slater's motion to videotape the meetings, because I've found in the past I was misrepresented in the newspaper twice. It's very difficult to go back and take back misinformation. So if people are interested in a particular topic, they can go to the website and hear it for themselves, rather than hearing a snippet of information as to how it may be interpreted by a third party. So thank you, Mr. Slater. I'm concerned with communications. From the get-go, I believe the parents have been following the protocol as to call the transportation office, and we will get back to you. Issues continue to remain open, not only with the transportation office. I'm getting correspondence from various board members and not getting answers. I'm not the only one out here asking questions. I understand that this is a second job to many of you. It's volunteerism. However, I'm concerned about a memo that we got from the transportation office saying that there's going to be a meeting concerning busing. There will be 2 parents present at the meeting. There were no parents present at this meeting, and I'd like to get a better understanding as to why we were clearly told that there will be representatives, 2 parents. We're limiting participation to 2 parent representatives. Neither parent was at the meeting. I'm not sure who to address this to.
Well, that was the parents' choice not to attend.
Were other volunteers sought? I believe one parent was asked in the beginning of the school year to attend the meeting because her child had experience on this bus. She chose not to participate going forward. Were other parents solicited? Because there have been more than 2 parents speaking to this audience since the beginning of the school year.
No.
So because one person could not attend, we chose not to seek out other representatives.
Correct.
Okay. And the other representative, I believe, was discouraged or suggested not to attend because that would then have been unequal representation at the meeting. If we're going to say 2 parent representatives are going to be present, I would think it would be executed.
My understanding is it's great when parents stand forward and volunteer to be representatives. But sometimes when parents do that, it puts them in a difficult position. And that was my understanding in this case. So we had 2 volunteers who were very good and spent time, gave their opinions, helped out early on. But as it progressed, for one reason or another, although the same parents who were great and stepped forward and helped were, for more than one reason was my understanding, were not able to or willing to, I won't speak for them, to step forward for the second meeting. They certainly were invited, and that was the intent. But the parent volunteers really do have an option to do that. And so you're right, did we go to another one? No, the point was to try to continue what had been done. My understanding was the parents didn't want to. So at that point, that's why nothing further was done regarding that. And that's why the issues were reviewed. But you're right, the 2 people who had been nice enough to come the first time, and that was very nice of them, because they're being asked to represent a whole group, didn't the second time. That is accurate, but that was the reason why.
You know, and
I would also just like to add to that, if I can. I think we started narrowing down the issues. They're very broad, timing and number of routes and splitting routes up, and very good suggestions made by the parents. But as we kind of got down the trail, the issues were very specific and very personal to groups or maybe one individual parent. And I felt, and I talked to Mr. Nero about it, about putting parents in that position was probably not the wisest thing to do when we can have direct conversations with those groups and take their suggestions. So I think we made the right call.
so I guess to close the loop, to say that there's going to be a meeting with parents, there's been very little follow-up with parents. We knew nothing about the outcome of the meeting, of the update. I understand a couple route, or at least one stop, has been reinstated. That's terrific. I understand that Mr. Unero is going to keep the E7 return route in place for safety purposes. Completely understood. But we ask you to consider the options, and we've made progress. I just hope as the school year continues that the frequency of errors will be minimal once a new driver does begin the route. Once again, it's communication. We are sending information into the transportation office and not getting answers. For example, there was an unknown adult riding on a bus that the children didn't know who it was. Mr. Unero, when I called your office, you were unaware that there was another adult on the bus. The parents were curious. Who is this person? Is she a friend, a family member, or a supervisor from Vogel? I think that's a fairly high-profile question. Who is this other person on the bus? No answers provided.
Well, it turned out to be a supervisor from Vogel.
To reinstate, I hope communications could improve, because across the board, it's going into a black hole, and very few answers are coming back, not only from the transportation office, but other board members as well, who are getting involved. And from the get-go, Mrs. Walker said that it's not a Board of Education function. It's become one, and I understand that it's now in the business office hands, and hopefully it will all go more smoothly going forward. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Are there any other comments from the board about transportation? All right. Dr. Dolan. Are you done? I am. Excellent. All right. I'm going to move the agenda along, and I would ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on October the 18th, 2011, and the minutes from our private session of October the 11th, 2011. Second? Any comments?
No, I don't want a second.
Okay.
Actually, I have a comment.
Okay.
My agenda says October 18th,
What did I say?
11.
I apologize. It is October the 18th of 2011. I
Right.
apologize. Thank you. And Mrs. Lights.
Yes, I would like the board to table the approval of the minutes of the October 18th meeting to include a summary of the long-range planning report that was given at that meeting.
Second.
Any objections? Okay, so we'll vote on that motion first, since it is the public meeting minutes that we're voting to table for until the next meeting.
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And so for the private minutes for October the 18th, do we have any comments? Could I have a second? Great. All those in favor? Aye. Super. So we have tabled the public meetings and have approved the private minutes. Mrs. Clancy, Personnel.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to ask for the board's approval of personnel items number 1 through 18. Also adding to it addendum items number 19 through 21.
Second, Mrs. Lights. Thank you. Are there any comments about personnel?
Just make a quick note. Item number 13, we would like to just thank the Westfield United Fund tutoring program that continues in our elementary schools for their helping to fund that program.
Absolutely.
And also, we are approving winter coaching assignments, as well as several unpaid coaching volunteers that also help with those. So thank you to those folks as well.
I just want to, number 18, thank the paraprofessionals that stepped up in a pinch and helped us with the busing. Nina Jasker, Catherine Weigel, and Marie McGrory. I mean, they were compensated, but I think throwing a curve to an employee and they kind of stepped into a role, it helped the district.
It was helpful, yep.
Definitely helped. So.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mrs. Lights.
Although we got information from Mrs. Ball regarding item number 20 on the addendum, we're talking about, I wasn't quite sure about the 1/5 daily rate for 2 periods a week.
Right.
How does that work?
Normally, if a teacher teaches an additional period a day, and that's something that's often approved on the agenda, they get paid an additional 5th.
Right.
But this is not for 5 days a week, it's for 2. So, so on 2 of those days, they're getting paid the additional 5th, but not all 5. Maybe it's confusing the way it was worded, I'm sorry.
I think it is confusing the way it's worded.
But it's written, I'm sorry, I don't know if this helps. So the way they broke it down was, it's 1/5 of the per diem. And so for 2 days, they get an additional 1/5 of the per diem.
Well, it does say 1/5 of its daily rate. I see. Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure we weren't 1/5 salary,
No,
because that would be 1 period per day,
exactly.
every day.
But in fact, it is the amount stated. So
All
the
right.
confusion is more in the words and not in the number, yes?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other comments? All right, let's vote.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes?
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstad?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Clancy, Facilities.
No report. We will be meeting on November the 14th.
Mrs. Lights, Long Range Planning.
No report. We have a meeting on the calendar, Dr. Dolan. Will we be meeting Thursday?
We may have to postpone that. I have been collecting the information the board wanted, or the committee wanted, but I don't really have it ready yet.
All right. Another opportunity was to have a discussion regarding the strategic plan and whether or not we wanted to look further at the strategic plan to see what might be coming up for the future. I'll have to give that a little bit of thought and talk to you privately about that, whether or not we want to hold this meeting rather than let it go. I think there might be some value in it. Okay.
I would ask that the board approve the following resolution as stated in the agenda, that the board affirms the superintendent's decisions for the incidents listed and for the reasons set forth therein. May I have a second, please? Mr. Slater, thank you. Any comments? Okay, let's vote. Sorry? Oh, I do apologize. Thank you. Getting the aye, I'm thinking I've left something out. First, I would like to amend the statement in the list of, so it's got a series of numbers and letters, and add to that list 12E01, please. And I would ask the board to approve the amendment to the resolution. Yes? And thank you, Mrs. Kerstead. And so first, we're going to amend the resolution, and then we'll approve the resolution. So, or can we just approve it as amended?
I think
Is
we
that
can just
allowed?
approve it as amended,
Love
yes.
that. Okay. So we have a second. Let's go ahead and vote.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes?
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Curriculum instruction and program. Is there a report to be
I'm going to
made?
give a very brief report for Mrs. Carey. Curriculum Committee met on October 27th. We wanted to review with retiring Assistant Superintendent Anita O'Neill her priorities for the upcoming months when we'll be welcoming Paul Pinero to the role. We talked a little bit about the fact that language arts curriculum for K-5 was in its review process, and it would be coming to the curriculum committee shortly, as well as math K-3 and then higher level math. We talked a little bit about our interest in reviewing the gifted program, and Mrs. O'Neill talked to us a bit about focusing on state mandated test outcomes and encouraging all schools within the district, all principals, to focus on talking to students about the value of their outcomes, achievement outcomes for those tests, and how it was important to the district as a whole, that it was a critical reflection on the district's standing. We talked a little bit about STEM, and we're very anxious. We're sorry to see Mrs. O'Neill retire, but we're anxious to welcome Paul Pinero to his role as district supervisor and leader of the SIP committee.
Thank you. Mr. Matesic is not here, and he asked me to move the finance motions forward, so I would ask the board to approve items 1 through 5 under finance, please.
Second.
A second from Mr. Friedman. First, if I may, I'd like to say thank you very much to the Westfield Coalition for the Arts for the $500 grant to the Westfield High School Wind Ensemble and Concert Band for securing master teachers and clinicians. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record, please. Is there any legislation that needs to be reported tonight? Okay. Any unfinished business? Any new business? I have some new business that I would like to share. A little over 6 months ago, I was given the opportunity to go back to work after being out for a very long time. And I started back to work part-time and have been at it now full-time for almost a month. And it has great potential for it to be a career again. And with the age of my children and the amount of time that I find available in my week, I am going to be stepping down from the Board of Ed. I will be at the next meeting on November the 22nd and finish out through the month of November, because that's the last public meeting in November. But after that, there will be a vacancy on the Board of Ed, and there are policies in place on how the board will proceed as far as gathering resumes and applications, and it'll all be in the newspaper explaining how the policies work. And honestly, this school district and this Board of Ed are so capable, and it is all running so well that I feel very comfortable that I can step down and go back home for those few hours on a Tuesday night and do the things that I used to do before I went back to work, and dedicate more of my time to my family, so, since I'm spending so much of my time during the day somewhere else. You will hear me say this again on the 22nd, but for tonight, I would like to say it has been nothing but a privilege to sit on this Board of Ed, and I do feel that I have had the opportunity to serve with some of the finest people in town and the finest administrators and teachers. So I thank you very much for that privilege. But it is time for me to try something else. So with that said, we're moving right on.
Well, we don't have to move right on. For example, I think I should say that a few things, including you were just very modest. You said a few hours on Tuesday. Now, you know, people who have ever served on a Board of Education or a body like that know that it's a lot more than that. The amount of time that the board members use reading the information beforehand, asking questions, responding to emails from the community, attending all sorts of committee meetings, representing the board and the district at, in this district, hundreds of functions throughout the year. I mean, and no matter where you go, people know you're the board member, so you're always working. And you've done that, I believe, for 8.5 years for this district, and we've been very fortunate. And since we are an organization that focuses on the education and development of our students, everyone easily understands you're working now and you still have responsibility to your family and your children, and there's no one around here who will debate that. So we thank you for, and we'll thank you again, but we thank you for so many years of wonderful service and uncounted hours of dedication, and your experience that you brought to the district. It's a very different perspective and helpful. We thank you quite a bit, and we will move on, but you will certainly be missed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So, any ad hoc committee reports?
That's a tough one to follow. For me. Wow. Well, the Technology Committee has had a busy few weeks. 3 members, including myself, were in attendance at the New Jersey School Board Association's statewide conference and heard presentations varying from iPads in the classroom to engaging the community with digital media to website design. We had the opportunity to network, no pun intended, with many district and school board members who provided us with insights into their process of technology upgrades and integration. Lots of great role models out there in other districts when it comes to technology. We plan to use what we learned at the conference to meet the needs of our district, including the seamless infusion of technology into how children learn, into the classroom curriculum, and improving the way that we all communicate with all stakeholders. We also heard last week, I believe, an inspiring presentation from Nancy Latimer, who is the media specialist at Westfield High School, and Jeremy Davies, the vice principal of the high school. Their knowledge of social media, course management systems, and a variety of other 2.0 tools available will provide, we believe, a great springboard for our new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Paul Pinero, who fortunately was also made himself available to be in attendance at that meeting, and we thank him for that. This was our first stop of a tour of all the schools as we begin to deepen our understanding of the district's technology and landscape. Next week, I'm happy to say that a wireless survey is being conducted with our Chief Technology Officer, Brian Alker, to find out what it will take to make every classroom wireless. Much of what we learned from our research points to the fact that building our infrastructure first is the opinion of all stakeholders is imperative if we truly want to realize our vision. So stay tuned to this BAT channel for more information, but we plan to push this down the road as much as we can. So I thank my other committee members for their dedication too.
Thank you. Liaison reports. Mrs. Lights.
This is from several weeks ago. I was able to attend the McKinley School PTO meeting. The topic was anti-bullying. Principal Matt Bolton gave a very strong presentation to parents about what was happening within the school. Mary Beth Hertz, who is the counselor at McKinley, gave a report on activities and processes, not only for Week of Respect, but also things that she is doing with all the children at McKinley and teaching them about respectful behavior, positive outcomes. Some parents questioned about the grade portal. We had a small discussion, and I think I have not had any calls about that at the moment, so hopefully we are all finding that it's starting to be better understood. On the 18th of October, I took a school tour offered by Union County Ed Services Commission. Annually, they provide, they make their superintendent available to all board members and give a very lengthy tour of all of their schools, and it's a pleasure to be able to see what's happening in these fine schools that we have right here, some of them in Westfield. And then I think Roseanne is going to speak, and I will just say that I attended with her to the anti-bullying presentation of the PTC Special Ed Parent Meeting, and she'll give a review, I believe, of some of the topics that were covered there.
I thought I was off the hook because I did the announcement.
Oh,
Doesn't work that way.
But I will say, before I get to that, I did attend the PTO general meeting at Franklin. It was October 6th, and the topic was also the new HIB policy, and Lynn Slomchevsky, the social worker there, and Dr. Cambria presented to, I'd say, about 20 or 30 parents, and it was a very nice dialogue between the law and its practicality and how it will be implemented in the schools. I also attended the PTC President's Meeting, which seems like ages ago. And I also attended the PTC General Meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, and it was surprisingly quite a short meeting with not much discussed except Dr. Dolan's report, synopsis of our previous meeting. I mentioned some things that the board was working on in different committees, the long-range planning report that Ginny mentioned at the previous board meeting, and then the facilities report that Jane mentioned also at the previous meeting. Something very exciting that they did report at the PTC meeting was that the PTC Technology Committee is up to $15,000 that they have raised. So that was exciting. And then I also attended the HIB presentation at Roosevelt, and I'm just hibbed out. I am hibbed out. And as Ginny said, the HIB presentation that was presented by presented by the Special Ed Committee of the PTC. That was at Edison, but I was also at the Roosevelt one as well. But no, there's also a Roosevelt. There was a Roosevelt program going on tonight on Rachel's Challenge. That was at 7 o'clock, and on my way driving here, I did see many, many cars parked along the school. So that I'm looking forward to hearing about that. So. I would say there were about 50 parents at the special ed presentation where Audrey Zavitz and Dr. Weissman presented, and They both discussed the policy, what the district has been doing in the past, and how we are changing really the investigation procedures. But Westfield has for quite a while been looking at our climate and how we can be a community that really works together and treats each other with respect, not only during the week of respect, but always. And, you know, some parents had lots of valid questions that I think we are all grappling with, like the paperwork, like the time it takes to implement the investigations, like interviewing students without parents, if parents would like to be involved. So, I mean, it's an open dialogue, and I'm glad to see lots of parents attending these presentations and opportunities really to discuss this issue, because it is important.
Actually, I forgot, the last meeting I didn't mention. I attended the meeting of the Roosevelt School PTSO. This was on the October 18th. And the main topic of the meeting was the new harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. And at the meeting, the principal, Mr. Carey, said he was very concerned about how the policy has been impacting the culture of the school and eroding trust between the counselors. These are his words. He feels the student life in the last few weeks has changed for the worse, and he's very concerned. And he just wanted to echo that to the full board. I will end on a lighter note because the PTSO is requesting that our maintenance folks consider hand dryers in the restrooms and have asked our facilities committee, Mrs. Clancy, I was told to ask you, to look into the upkeep of the restrooms at Roosevelt. That was a concern. So,
Right to the top.
All right.
Just one more quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick update. Tamaulipas PTO had a meeting just about 2 weeks ago, and their main topic of discussion was the outdoor classroom presentation, which we had talked about at our previous board meeting. They had met with facilities, so they got some energy going in delivering the presentation and blueprints for the folks that came out to Tamaulipas that night, and everyone seems very excited about that. And Mr. Cullen gave a presentation also on the grade portal and helped to answer some questions and talked a little bit about the impact on the elementary school, which I think is a little different from its impact on the middle school and the high school. So parents got a little bit more informed as to what's happening, asked them to be a little patient with working through the portal and learning how to sign on and gather their information. And I guess the biggest question that seems to have bubbled up from it was parents' concerns over more for their older students of sharing the information if they have more than one student in the grade portal. So I guess if they're allowing their children to also access the portal along with them, that seemed to be the one question that came up a few times, whether they would be able to separate that out. And I think hopefully as time goes on and we run through some assessment of it, we might be able to have a topic of discussion on that.
Anyone else? All righty. We can now recognize the public for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one approach the podium, we do have a private session this evening, so I'd ask the board to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purposes of discussing personnel, litigation, or negotiations, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.